So today I'm joined on Menopause Mastery with Kelly Resendez. In addition to being a mom, she's an executive at Goodleap, a multi-billion-dollar company. She's a best-selling author and influencer, and she's a true leader in empowering women and to live a life of abundance. And she's also one of the co-owners of Go Abundance Women. It's a membership organization for women dedicated to achieving greatness and abundance. Kelly is passionate about helping others adopt an abundance mindset and overcoming self-sabotage to achieve goals. And she believes that joy and success should and do go hand in hand. And she's dedicated her life to helping women find both. Through her popular book, Big Voices, and her Women Empowered Network, Kelly shares her strategies and tools to inspire and empower women to think differently and achieve all that they desire. And we covered some really, really great things. First and foremost, Kelly shared her life story, and I think is going to really, really link in with a lot of women listening today about her mom's own health journeys with dementia and kind of living that life where we're caring for another parent, and also the fears and things that might pop up for you if you have a parent that has been ailing, and then also how to look at this next season of life and really live into it from a health standpoint, and get over self-sabotage and limiting yourself and your limiting beliefs. So join me for the next 45 minutes or so with Kelly Resendez on Menopause Mastery. So Kelly, like I said in my introduction, Kelly is going to lay it out for us. And we're going to talk about how you're self-sabotaging and all these other things that might be affecting the happiness in your life. Kelly, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my goodness, Dr. Betty, I'm so excited to be here and just share some of my journey and some of the strategies that have helped me. I would say, I would love to use the word overcome self-sabotage, but I would just say highly improve on the way that I sabotage myself.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting because I think we learn through stories. As somebody who's factual based in numbers and details and data. The truth is the data is interesting, but we actually learn through stories because we see ourselves and hear ourselves in those stories. So I'd love to, as we get started, because you've had an interesting journey, particularly in your journey through health and how to really look at that. Let's talk a little bit about kind of where you started your life. How did you get to where you are today?
Absolutely. So I will tell you, I grew up in a small town in Northern California and was a classic overachiever. I was very attention seeking, very significance driven, and didn't probably have a present moment the entire time I was growing up. I lived in my head wondering, am I in the right place, doing the right thing? There were a lot of FOMO, a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry. However, on the outside, I would say that most people would have described me as being confident and strong and other things. And so often people that are hyper productive or overachievers, actually the inside story is a lot different than what's going on. And so that actually, my personality served me really well. I got into the mortgage industry at a young age, after being in a program in high school and through college. And so by the time I was in my early 20s, I was already earning six figures, and really, I had created a lot of worldly success for myself. And over time, I would say in doing that, just accumulated a lot of material things. And so from the outside, it looked like I was a success, but on the inside, I really wasn't. And I'm so grateful for my awakening, as challenging as it was. It was the catalyst for me to ask bigger questions in my life. But my mom at age 57 got diagnosed with dementia. And she was the person that, I think we always, like our mom or our dad, one of them were wanting to seek validation, were wanting to prove our worth or whatnot. And so all of a sudden, the audience that I was trying to impress she didn't have the capacity to care anymore. And it really just kind of threw me into this place. There were a few other things that happened in a short window of time, over about a year and a half. She was diagnosed. My grandmother, who was pretty much the one that co-raised me, even though I lived with my parents, and she passed away. My sister started to have some cracks in her mental well-being. And then I was pregnant with my daughter. And so all of
Hi.
those things just, coming together kind of led me to a place of, kind of again asking myself bigger questions like, what am I here for? Am I going to be like my mom? Is this going to happen to me when I get older? And that's what kind of set me on this path. And the first book I ever read, I would say in personal growth, because because I was really doing well in business by this point. By 2003, I was earning close to seven figures. Like, I lived a very financially blessed life, but I was stressed. I was absolutely overweight, self-medicating with a variety of different things in order to be able to get through each day. And I happened upon the book Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
I
And
love that book.
oh my goodness. It was literally like if you could see somebody like awaken and crack open, I was like, what? I am not my thoughts. Like, it literally blew my mind off because I had been, pretty much my thinking mind had dominated my whole life. Like, it had consumed my whole life. And when you're in mortgage and when you're, I was a top 1% originator in the nation. It was constantly, what's going on with the Smith file? What's going on with Betty? What's going on with this? It was just constant. And so that started me down a path. And then from that point moving forward over the last 20 years, I've just had a beautiful and I would just say a beautiful and adventurous journey in personal growth and development that includes my physical and emotional well-being.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine, I mean, as somebody who's, caring for a mother who has stroke-induced dementia, right? So she actually on the opposite side
Yeah.
of that, made it to 88 with never having really spent a night in a hospital and going from, fully functional to a full assist overnight. But there was something that, so first I can't imagine having a mom at 57 getting diagnosed because that's early onset dementia and it's usually rapid and aggressive, and how that would feel.
It wasn't.
It wasn't. So hers was drawn
It
out.
wasn't.
Oh,
No. No, she had semantic dementia.
okay.
And so, like one of the things she was diagnosed originally with early onset
Okay.
Alzheimer's. And how they diagnosed her, right, is you take a look at some black and white images that are literally poorly done, and you talk about symptoms. And so she was given a diagnosis at this point. Well, if you know anything about statistics, the Western medicine community will tell you that you have a 50% chance of getting early onset Alzheimer's if you have a parent that does,
Okay.
which is absolutely not true. And so it was one of those things that like kind of threw me into a little bit of orbit as well. But then over time, as I started to study, the brain and neuroscience and my mom and the things that were going on, we went back to a specialist and got the better imaging done,
Yeah.
the 3D imaging and whatnot. And I had already, based off of what was going on in my research, determined that she had semantic dementia. And the doctor was like, she has a textbook case for semantic dementia. And it was slow. It took almost 11 years for her to pass away. And her memory, she never forgot who I was
Oh, wow.
because her memory, the portion of her brain that holds memory was intact. It was just that left lobe that got, completely taken.
Yeah. Explain semantic dementia because I think, because everything sort of gets lumped as Alzheimer's today when it's not, right? They're like, oh, it's
For
Alzheimer's. And I
sure.
was like, well, just because somebody
Oh,
has dementia doesn't mean they have
yeah.
Alzheimer's.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's all sorts of different types of dementia. And the only way that you're really going to know is by getting the deeper 3D imaging done. Most doctors are going to take the path of taking a look at something and then listening to your symptoms and giving you, what I would tell you is a curse. I'll just share a quick story
Sure.
if we can about my dad because I think what part of my studies found was that they were imaging people that had symptoms, but they never thought to image people without
Totally.
symptoms. And so when people were going and presenting with some of these symptoms, they were giving them a diagnosis that may not have been appropriate because there could be a lot of other things going on, like depression mimics it. There's alcohol like can create a lot of memory things. Low creatine levels. Like there's so many things that can explain some of the memory loss. But you tell somebody they're losing their memory, you know what they're going to focus on? They're going to focus on losing their memory. And then they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I just forgot my keys again. I just forgot this again. I forgot that again. And now all of a sudden we have brought on and manifested a greater level of memory loss than we had before. And so with my mom, looking at all the different shades of it, semantic dementia just takes one lobe and just goes right through it.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't, where Alzheimer's is atrophy from the outside in, we have more shrinkage. Some of the other dementias hit one area. And so the area that hit her first was language. She really had a loss for words. She had a loss for explaining things. And so, man, that really did look like Alzheimer's, right?
Yeah.
Oh, she's forgetting these things. Well, no, the area in your brain that's responsible for language was being, hijacked. And so, and then from there were, of course, it just continued, because once it gets going, there is a little bit, but it was a slower one.
Yeah.
But with my dad, I'll just share with you with my
Yeah.
dad. So for anyone out there listening that has elderly parents, don't tell them. Just don't tell him. If you notice, just don't tell him. I took him to the doctor because I thought he might have something going on with like a tumor. There was like a pretty major shift in the way that he was behaving for a short period of time. And so I took him to the neurologist, and we got a scan, and the neurologist came in the room. Now my dad can't hear very well. And so the neurologist said, there's no tumors, but he has frontal lobe dementia. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. And you will not tell him. My dad didn't hear. This was 10 years ago. My dad is still independently living at 89. Like, because I knew it was normal. There's normal atrophy in anyone's brain as you age, especially if you aren't, taking care of your, I would say inflammation and other things that really create this environment in which your brain starts to decay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we can really take on ownership of whatever we're told and sort of manifest and create that experience. I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I mean, there's importance in understanding what's going on, and then you don't necessarily have to take it up and put it on like a coat and wear it, right? We could choose not
Absolutely.
to.
And believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like doctors telling you how long they have to live. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Last time I checked, you're not God.
Right.
Like, I'm going to go ahead and support this person as long as they can. Like, we really do need to take responsibility that we're the creators. And I've watched and witnessed, hundreds of people heal themselves from things that doctors told them they didn't have any possibility to heal from, just simply through some of the functional medicine practices and meditation practices and healing practices that are available out there.
Yeah, because ultimately what you're saying is that, even just taking on whether it's a diagnosis, but it really is a belief of some sort, like a belief beliefs are
Yes.
always driven by some level of, resources or symptoms that we can point to drive that belief, right? So the reality is we symptom and believe things all day long, even outside of medicine. But to some degree, if we take them on, we put them on like a coat and we wear them and then we wallow in them, we sabotage ourselves.
We do. And that's the part where in life, I think what I've found on this journey is that when we fully step into abundance, we accept that we're the creator of our own reality. And we don't give that away to other people. And we still often give away our emotional well-being, our physical well-being to others because, we could make a million excuses why we're not in peak physical, emotional, financial, health. And yet when we step into that ownership role of like, okay, I am the creator, I'm also the creator of my own health and well-being. And so when I look at, why am I so passionate about this is I believe wholeheartedly that the world needs to transform I would just say the whole leadership paradigm that's happening in this country. Like we could go look at statistics and know that less than 10% of women are in C-suite. We have very few, executives in proportion to the number of employees that we make up. Women have a much more challenging time raising capital, yet perform better once they have it.
Yes.
And so when I look at this, I look at the truth. The world will be a better place when we have a better balance between feminine and masculine energy, and there's more collaboration between men and women. And I think part of this is a health issue. I think part of this is because women, and again, we could go blame the old regime. I am sure there are people out there that are still discriminating. I am not going to focus on it. Like in abundance, in the way that I practice, I focus on what's satisfactory and what I'm powerful enough to shift. And so when I talk to women that are out there, I look at a few things. There are really like big differences between the instances of stress between men and women. And so women that are working report much higher instances of stress. So let's just start with stress, right? So if you look at stress, like where does stress come from? Like it comes from we care so much, or we have an attachment to outcomes, or we feel like we have too much on our plate. We have all of these other things. But when we really look at stress on what it does to our body, and this, I'm sure you treat tons of people that have adrenal fatigue. I'm sure you treat tons of people that are basically their insulin's bouncing all over the place and their cortisol levels are ridiculous and they have inflammation. Well, like, let's start with just stress. How do we see stress differently? I believe, and some people are not going to like me right now. Like, I'm going to be honest, because they're going to be like, there are a lot of listeners who are probably really stressed out. Holidays, everything's going on right now. I'm not sure when this drops, but at all times, most people, they have an aging parent, they've got kids that are struggling, a career that something has happened. When you believe stress is optional, you really take so much power back. And when you see where stress comes from, like we really just have this ancient brain, right? It is the lowest level technology that we have not upgraded. It believes you're in danger inappropriately on a regular basis. Like we're not in danger when we have a tough conversation. We're not in danger when something doesn't go right or whatever any of those things might look like. And so when we look at stress as optional, we become more powerful in order to be able to just offset it. Like I just choose to do life without it. My belief system that I've built, and when I say built, like I built it from scratch. I hit Control Alt Delete on everything that my parents taught me, everything that society, the schools, politics, religion, you name it. I hit Control Alt Delete and said, this is the type of life that I want to live. And I built one. And, I'm sharing that in my next book. Like, here are some of those beliefs that have helped me. But part of it is stress is optional. And, if women are stressed, are you going to go apply for a promotion?
No.
No, because you're going to believe it creates more. And what people don't tell you, a lot of times, I'm an executive at a multi-billion-dollar company. I've been helping the owners grow it for the last 14 years. We have an amazing team of people that have been doing it. But like, honestly, like it's optional. Stress is optional. Like I just do this without stress. And normally as you develop your leadership skills and you grow and you get to these higher levels, you have less stress. And so it's almost one of those things that we hold ourselves back. So stress is a big piece of how I would say that we self-sabotage ourselves, and it has a terrible impact on our physical well-being, and then they have to come see you.
Yep. No, it's absolutely true. A matter of fact, I gave a speech one time at an event for an international company, very large international company. And the speech was actually stress as an evolutionary advantage, human stress, right? Because we believe we're not supposed to have it. And there's good stress, there's stress that's more, but most of it is your perception of it. It's perception. One person's stressor is another person's, goal and challenge, right? So we have to change that. We have to change that mindset around what we see, because, you were talking about the loss of women in the C-suite, or lack of them. But here's the other thing.
We've never been there.
We've never been there. But the reality too is, but the reality too is the women that have made it into those upper management positions and other things are in many cases in my age group, your age group, and they are leaving the workforce in droves. And in many cases, it's not because they're going to go do the next thing that really makes them feel, they're leaving a legacy and passion and other stuff. It's because they feel bad, right? They feel bad because their hormones have tanked, and there's a brain drain. I'm speaking for another organization in January, and they, the HR group told me we have a brain drain going on, and the executive women who are in these positions are exiting. We do not have women who can step into these roles too. So we're setting ourselves up for failure as women to equalize and create parity in the workforce where women have the same opportunity as men. And we're not going to go down the misogyny world, but we have to feel better and do that. And that's, I think, a unique perspective you have, because you have tools that are not just hormones and the physicality of functional medicine. So let's dig into that a little bit, because I think it's really important, because it's not just stuff to take, it's things to think and do.
Absolutely. Well, number one, it's the collaboration between, your functional medicine doctor, maybe if somebody's really struggling, a mental health doctor, and getting the leadership support that's really out there that's needed for somebody, and then being in community. So what I would say is, like, back to, the why. Like, if we really think about why this is important, because most of us look at ourselves as an individual. Like, why does it really matter if I'm in, if I'm somebody listening and I'm in wherever it is, in whatever company, like, why does it matter if I do it? Well, what I would say is that, like, we have a responsibility as women to show the generations to come what's possible. And part of that is showing them that this is not, like, as much as I believe in equality, I don't believe this is the reason why we need to get more harmony and balance in here. I just believe women bring something much different to the table when it comes to feminine energy. We think wider, where men think more narrow, and we need both. And so that collaboration, like, and I'm calling it an us too movement. That's my big platform right now, is that we have to work together to get to this next level. And so some of those other tools that I really look at when we're going through some of these things is being able to recognize how we sabotage ourselves, and then put in place a sabotage management plan, so that we kind of allow the sabotage voice to ride shotgun with us. We're just not letting it drive us anymore. And so the other area that I would tell you is a big one is imposter syndrome. And when you look at imposter syndrome, again, women are reporting much higher levels of experiencing imposter syndrome than men. Are you going to apply for the role? No, you're not going to apply for the role, because you already feel like you aren't worthy of the role that you're in, and people are going to find out that you're not. And so the one area here, again, we've got to layer on, like, how I kind of do things when I'm working with people. So I co-own a women's mastermind called Go Abundance Women, and I do a lot of this work within that community. Is we all need to start with a desire for how we want to feel. There's not a person out there that's going to tell you that they don't want to feel worthy. Like we all want to feel that, right? We all want to feel worthy to our bones. Like, when we embody worthiness, like, the world changes around us. Like, it is just that one belief, I am worthy. Just that one simple belief has the power to override the imposter syndrome, right? Because I can't stop. Like, I wish that I had a strategy to stop the thinking. Number one, I want you to release the idea that you can. Like, any attachment to all of this is just going to go away. No, the plan is, I'm just going to learn how to make friends with it. I'm going to learn how to see this as separate from who I am, because my highest, most conscious, authentic self knows this is not coming from that same place. This is coming from wounding. For some people, like Eckhart Tolle might call it, like, pain bodies from generations. Maybe it's your grandma's. Who knows whose it is that's showing up in your life today? And so this strategy is just, it starts with having awareness. that this voice, this imposter syndrome is the imposter, right? Like that is not who you are. And then coming up with a really solid plan that as it affects you, you can work yourself through it so that you can ask for the raise, ask for the funding, get to that next level in your career. But you do need to ensure there's one part of the abundance belief system, like you can never stop growing. You can never stop growing. You must be willing. Like if you would have told me 20 years ago, like that 20 years later, I'd be like, oh my goodness, I have so far to go, right? You're like, no, constant, it's this constant movement of flow. And the awareness is what gives me the ability to stay present and intentional about how I manage some of these voices that show up. So that's one really big thing. And I kind of have a sabotage management plan that I'm actually going to give some of those ideas to all your listeners at the end. And then the third thing that I would tell you from like an area of focus that's going to help get us to this next level is the work-life balance part. And there's a lot of guilt that women are reporting coming from this. Well, guilt is a very, very lower level emotion. And when you talk about the physical part of it, if we're not physically well, guilt will consume us. If we're not ready to be able to approach like and have the energy, and that's the big thing that I really look at is I really look at how do I teach people how to create more energy so that you do feel like doing more of what you want to. And so I'm a mom. I have a 19 and a 21-year-old. And I raised my children using conscious parenting. So thank you, Dr. Shafali. If anybody's listening and you haven't checked out her stuff, she's absolutely brilliant. I feel like she was the voice in my head as I navigated challenges that I endured with my kids. And when I look at what work-life balance really is, if we peel it apart, right? It's I don't feel good enough wherever I am.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel good enough wherever I am. And I'm not powerful enough to create my own priorities. I let life do it. And I had the absolute pleasure when my kids were very little of spending time with this woman who actually co-created a lot of Tony Robbins stuff with them.
Mm-hmm.
She's a beautiful woman, very wise. She grew up in Latin America and raised her kids in Latin America. And one of the things that she told me is like, you Americans are crazy. She's like, I was a working mom. I never went to one of my kids' games after school. She's like, and yet in America, you guys are all comparing one another and think that you need to do it all. And she's like, she basically was like, they're narcissistic little suckers anyway. Like, make them know that they're not the center of the world, or else they're going to be entitled when they grow up. And so I made a lot of shifts when my kids were little because I was already, I was working. I was a solo provider at the time that my kids were young. And so I really did use a lot of thoughtfulness that what I aspired from an alignment standpoint was just to be present wherever I was without
Mm-hmm.
guilt. And when you think about that, like what difference that can make if you choose to do it without guilt. And so part of it starts with, from a strategy standpoint, just come up with a vision for how you want to feel wherever you are. And then just start practicing. How do I get into that feeling? Like this conversation with you is part of my feeling. Like I want to contribute to the world. I want to make the world a better place. Well, what does that feel like? Like I get to share wisdom. I get to tell you part of my story of what worked for me, and it's going to make an impact. And so now it's just kind of that cycle of now I'm going to celebrate afterwards. I'm going to experience more gratitude that I get to do this. And that's kind of that recipe that we need to kind of move forward with in our life.
Yeah, I think, you hit the nail on the head. It's like comparison is the killer of joy. If you're constantly scrolling through social media or, showing up in your environment, comparing yourself to someone else who, may on the outside look like they have a similar life, it's not, right?
No,
It's not. And it's very
never.
fundamental. And, I think I think that I'm glad you brought up the, being present for your kids. You can be present with your kids cooking dinner. You can be present for your kids in the car driving them to school. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
you have to make it to every single game and be on the PTA board and then also cook all the baked goods and all these other 100 things that women do that they don't even want to do, but they sacrifice themselves,
Oh,
and then they wonder
yeah.
where anybody's going to put the cross up later for them to climb up. Sorry, that's a
Yeah.
nasty analogy, but it's true. It's like we don't have to
Yeah.
martyr ourselves for the people we live around and do.
Yeah.
And I think we get told that that's kind of the expectation, or the expectation, or we internalize that as an expectation and then wonder why we feel like crap.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things that you might be doing that in your 30s, right? And then you get into your 40s and then you get the hormonal shifts and then it just makes it worse. And then, I mean, it just is one of those things that I would say, anybody listening, it's just the responsibility. When we take responsibility for our life experience, then we can start putting in place like some things that are going to make it better. So for an example, one of the things that I really walk people down is like, start with the desire. The desire is going to include, how do you really want to feel every day? Nobody wakes up and they're like, man, I want to feel guilty. I want to have the most mediocre day because I'm actually scrolling too much and I'm going to compare myself to some other people. And then I'm going to feel really bad about my body when I look in the mirror. And then I'm going to just do the same thing tomorrow. Like nobody says that. But yet, when our brain is just ruling our life and all it cares about is survival, which you did. You survived doing all those things. So you're reinforcing to your brain over and over that this is the right recipe for you to stay alive. And we've got to just hit Control Alt Delete on that and just start over and build the life that you really want for yourself. And, I'm blessed to have been able to do that. That doesn't mean I'm without human suffering. So for anyone listening, it doesn't mean like I'm over here toxic positivity, like just do it my way. No, I go through a lot. I've had a lot of grief this year. I've had a lot of things that have come up for me this year. And I've been able to stay in joy and suffer simultaneously because I've been so committed to this desire of how I want to feel. And then I'm fine tuning, what standards do I need? What boundaries do I need? What do I need to do rather than starting? And for the women listening, most of us just do way too much. We don't spend enough time being. And that's where, like, just being, like, really just breathing and being in the moment and taking things in without expectation, without needing to share or do any of those things. So, starting with desire. And then the next piece is discipline.
Thank
We
you.
need discipline. We need to train our brains what they need to do, just like the puppy, right? Just like the puppy. Train it, reward it, repeat. Train it, reward it, repeat, like over and over and over again. And so in my next book, I'm really going to share a lot of those practices that are going to be able to be helpful for you to feel that. And then the last piece that we need, which people don't put enough emphasis, because you can have desire and discipline. It can be really hard because a lot of people do it in isolation. I'm one of them. In my last book, Big Voices, I actually dedicated an entire section on learning how to be lonely. And then I
Yep.
realized, oh my gosh, I'm the creator of my own reality. I can go build something with a community of women, right? And so then the last piece is environment. An environment is really composed of your energy. Like, how do you take care of your physical well-being? How do you take care of your emotional well-being? Who do you surround yourself with? What's the quality of your sleep? What is the quality of your gut? What's the quality of your hormonal state? What's the environment that you've created for yourself that allows you to reach the desire and maintain the disciplines that is really necessary? Because I'm like, if I'm going to be here, like, I'm going to live a freaking epic life. Like, I don't want to do anything small. Like, I want to live an epic life. Now, my purpose might be different than somebody else's. I have people behind the scenes that support me, and that's where they want to be, and they don't want to be a podcast host, or they don't want to be these other things. And so what I would say is there's no wrong or right to what your desire starts with, but you really want to make sure as you get ready to live at this new level that hopefully you choose for yourself as you're listening. So you obviously are committed to your physical well-being. If you want to get to this next level of like totally being in flow, you've got to fine tune that environment.
Are you tired of feeling constantly fatigued, overwhelmed by stress, or struggling with energy crashes? So I want to help you reclaim that vitality with my Metabolic Blueprint 28-day adrenal health program. Here's what you're going to get: natural energy boost, stress reduction, balanced blood sugar, enhanced mental clarity, and a very, very good start on rebalancing your adrenal function to help with hormone balancing. Here's what's included. There are 3 nutritional products: Energy Boost Mastery, Stress Less Mastery, and Blood Sugar Mastery. These 3 products synergistically help modulate your stress response, improve blood sugar control, and induce relaxation. You'll also get access to my Metabolic Blueprint app that includes personalized health goals, tracking, and daily wellness and guided nutrition through my Metabolic Blueprint 28-day adrenal program. And for a limited time, I don't normally do this, I am going to also have 3 masterclasses with anybody who takes the 28-day program. And we're going to have live Q&As so we can talk about hormones. You get the entire adrenal health program, the 3 masterclasses, and the supplements for $180. Join us today, because if you do, you'll be registered before the January 20th, 2025 start date. And so all you got to do is go to the link in the show notes, metabolicblueprint.com, hormone adrenal health program, and click the link and you can register and you will get all of those bennies. And again, it's only $180. And I look forward to seeing you January 20th.
And I think it's so important that the discipline part, and nobody likes hearing that, right? Because I hear it all the time. I don't feel energetic enough to work out. I don't feel energetic enough or feel right to like go cook a healthy meal. I don't feel like, here's the reality. It doesn't matter what you feel. The only way you can get to that, period.
Right there.
Right. Period. Full stop. Discipline affords you freedom to then have the feelings you desire, because you have to have discipline around the activities that can help you bring those freedoms, because you have to be who you want in the future. You have to be now in order to have. And I think that's like, it's so foreign because people, we've been told you got to feel like it. Well, shit, no one feels like doing anything. If you let your mind run amok with its very classically, caveman mentality, it's going to be like, dude, I'm going to chill on the rock here until I got to go find food and just think up random.
Yeah,
and
it's interesting.
Yeah, so
go ahead.
so convoluted, and people they're like, I don't want to be told what to do. No, I'm not telling you what to do. You told me what your goals are and what you want to desire and what we want to improve. You're going to tell you what you have to do so you can be that.
But that's where the awareness comes in. When I speak, one of the things that I talk about is there's a 5-year-old in all of us, right? Where we were being told what to do. My big thing, I don't know about you, but my mom used to make me practice piano. And she would set a timer, and it literally was like the timer of hell. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, I did not like practicing piano, right? And all of a sudden we start to just go like, when I'm older, I'm going to do what I want whenever I want to do it. And we have to make friends with that voice. And then we have to use the discipline. And when discipline isn't getting you where you want to go, because it doesn't always. Discipline doesn't always get you there. You need to bring in the accountability army. And that's what's different. So for an example, I had it on my goal list for years that I wanted to do weight training. Like, it might be something you love. It was not something I loved. So discipline couldn't get me where I wanted to go. Did the cardio, did the yoga, meditated, all the things. But as you know, we need more muscle mass as we go into the second half of our life. And so I had to bring in the accountability army. I had somebody knock at my door at 6 a.m. this morning and get me up and work me out for an hour. right? I've had to make choices like that. There are some things that I have had to be vulnerable enough to admit this is not something I can do on my own, and I have to ask for help. And that's another big thing that holds us back as women and professionals. For anyone listening, we have to ask for help. There are just some of those things that you're going to need. And for some of you, maybe you're listening in bed because you actually have really, really deep depression right now. And that's where you have to just pick up the phone and ask for help. Like, pick up the phone and ask for help. Just tell somebody. Like, there are people that are in my life that I basically said, do you need me to throw you over my back for a while? Because I'll do that. I will throw you over my shoulders and I will carry you until you can start walking on your own 2 feet again. Because we just never know how deep somebody can get. Because when you think about overthinking or having our hormones be out of balance, it might start subtly, but if it just continues, like, we can really find ourselves in a state that almost is impossible for us to get out of it on our own. And so, I mean, just please ask for help. There are so many resources out there.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that asking for help and then also having community. I was speaking with a woman last week, and she's in the middle of getting a divorce. And, she was talking about the divorce, and she's like, both of us knew that this is going to happen. Like, the marriage has not been together for a long time, but it was the logistics of the children. It's the management of the kids. It's the, how is that going to change their life? All the things, people stay together for the kids, and the kids already know there's a problem. And then the other part of it too is, in her community, basically what was going to happen, she was going to get excommunicated, right? Because you don't leave your husband. And so it's like part of why she stayed for so long when it really wasn't good for either party was I at least have my community, right? And I was like, well, are they really your community if they wouldn't support you regardless of whatever personal decision you have with somebody in your own home? That's none of their damn business, But I think the other part is, I know just because the tens of thousands of women we helped in our clinic and, our telemedicine too, is this is a resounding story. A lot of people are at crossroads. Their relationships might be at crossroads. And they they look around and they're like, oh, that's my bunco friends, but they don't want to support getting healthier. They want to have chocolate and wine every night. And I'm not a hater of either one, but you can't indulge in it like it's $19.99 every day. Right.
Right.
And so I think that's important too, is understanding that if you don't have that accountability or that community, it's time to find it, right? It's time to find it. Isolation is never good. COVID taught us that. Like, we have more mental health problems today than ever because of isolation,
However, I will say a lot of people are healthier on their own, and they're more lonely when they're in communities that they're not aligned with. And I found myself in that
100%.
situation too. So we do need to take radical responsibility, and it's tough for the people out there that have big decisions to make. Like, you need to be so committed to how you want to feel and so trusting that the right people will show up in your life at the right times to be able to support you. That might be the person at the coffee shop that like looks over and sees that you have a tear in your eye and they're like, I've been through the same thing. I work with women who varying degrees of like literally have had to like leave their entire lives in order to be able to get away from someone or a situation. And it's just the courage that it takes to do that. But your soul, when it's out of alignment, will keep at you, whether it's physical or emotional. It will keep at you until you make the decision and really just get in alignment with what's best for your highest and most authentic self.
No, that's so true. That's so true. And you can be at your absolute most lonely in a crowd, right? And so it's time. That means it's time for a new crowd or in a relationship. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
So true. So true. Yeah. So I had a little chance to speak to Kathy, and she's on the podcast too for GoBundance. But you guys come at the world and how you help people sort of transform their lives differently. Let's talk a little bit about the GoBundance community, because you helped start that, GoBundance Women specifically. Obviously fulfilling this life mission of helping women sort of live into their next future. Talk to me a little bit about like what what like helped you kind of come to that conclusion and go, I
Yeah.
need GoBundance women?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. So the first thing I would say is that yes, it's a big purpose to help women. That is my purpose is to fearlessly share wisdom to help people increase joy and reduce self-suffering. That's the big area of focus for me. I do some trauma work just on a nonprofit side, but the majority of the time I spend with women like myself that, kind of create our own suffering just in our own minds, right? But it didn't start that way. It started as my own selfish need for like-minded women. I had so many amazing men, like literally the three founders of Good Leap, the company that I've worked with. Amazing men, just amazing men in my life that were, executives or business owners, and we had so many things in common, but I didn't have a community of women. And so what would happen is I'd find myself like at events or things like that, and I'd feel lonely because I'd be talking to people and we wouldn't have as much in common. And so that's honestly how it got built. And so, we really support women that are looking to grow their careers, their businesses, their investment portfolios without sacrificing any other area of their life, that really want to stay in this place of like, hey, I want to have alignment. I want to be the creator. I'm in the driver's seat. I'm also looking at financial freedom, so I get to work, or just that are in a position that they want more adventure and fun as well. So we've got something for everyone that's out there in a place of just wanting to seek community.
Yeah, it's like I said, when I was talking to Kathy, I was so excited to meet this community. I've got other communities that are healthcare driven, but it was
Yeah.
wonderful to see, especially multi-generational community that really, all are there to help each other out and have us have a better life and a more exciting life
Have
that's more
fun
in
doing it.
alignment. Yeah,
Yeah, having doing it. Well, we loved having you at our last event in Austin. And that's
it
the
was great.
greatest thing about our events is like we play, we dance, we journal, we vision, we connect, we provide support to people in big decisions, and then we bring amazing speakers like Cody Sanchez. If you haven't checked out Cody's book,
Yeah.
Millionaire, it is amazing, amazing book as well, and had her in to speak about the value of businesses and other things. So just definitely a fun time.
Yes, definitely. So what's next on your horizon? So you alluded to a book.
Holy
What
moly. The next is sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, this is really my life. Like I get to do all of the things that I'm doing today. So, at Good Leap, we're continuing to innovate and just bring amazing offerings out into the home improvement space, the green energy space, and our nonprofit. Give Power is continuing to bring clean water and energy into places that just don't have access to it. So every day I feel blessed that I get to do this. And then Go Abundance Women is, of course, looking to connect with more women out there. You can check it out at goabundancewomen.com. We're always looking for those connections over time. And then for myself personally, I've got a new book coming out in 2025. I'm working with John Maxwell
Oh
currently
yeah.
right now on a lot of things, one including his financial wisdom program, doing mentoring within that community, and then also just doing some more work out in the mindset work and just speaking and sharing more, and lots of events between January and June coming up. So super excited about that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how can people find you, Kelly, if they want to find you
Yeah.
online? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I've got a great gift for you. You can go to www.downloadthepod.com. I talk about some of those big ways that we're sabotaging ourselves. And if you're interested in having me speak at your next event or just connecting with me more personally, you can just go to kellyresendez.com. But check out the 3-part series on downloadthepod.com, and it'll give you some great actionable tools that you can take away from today's conversation. But if there's one thing that I would leave your listeners with is please, please just take the time to write down how you want to feel in your life. And when you do that and you look at it and you embody it every single day, it is amazing how much abundance and synchronicities and other things will start to show up in your life just because you've really fine-tuned that desire, and then start to introduce some of the disciplines and fine-tune that environment as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, Kelly, for being on the show today. And we'll make sure all of those links are in our show notes for sure. And then obviously I'm just going to do a basic plug for the GoBundance Women. If you're a woman and you're looking for tribe, this is a fabulous tribe of really brilliant women, all the way from like 20 up to 80, and it's just really fun. And then we're going to see each other in like a little over a month. Woohoo! At a GoBundance event.
Awesome. We'll see you down in Puerto Rico. We've got some guest spots out there too. So just connect with us on the GoBundanceWomen.com if anyone's interested in attending. And just thank you, Dr. Betty, for everything that you do to support women. It is such, our physical well-being is the foundation for joy and success. And I just honor you for everything that you do to support women out there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for being
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay, everybody, from Menopause Mastery, this is our show. If you love this show and you really, really want to share it, please share it with a friend. So together we rise. And I'll be back with you next week.